This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Man Carrying Things Cinematic Universe. I want to continue to share more book recommendations on this channel because people have reached out to me and said, hey, I really appreciate reading these things. And then you let me know that you read it and I'm like, wow, I'm an influencer. Also, the sun is going down, which means that I have limited time to talk about these books. So for no particular reason and in no particular order, here's a bunch of books that I like that I think you should read. Flannery O'Connor. This seems kind of like a no-brainer. I don't know why I haven't really talked much about Flannery O'Connor on the channel yet. One of the strangest and most interesting writers I've ever encountered, and she wrote mostly short stories, you know, the kind of Southern Gothic genre, but there's a lot of humor and darkness mixed in Flannery O'Connor's work that I love. The Violent Bear It Away and Wise Blood are two of her novels that she wrote, and Wise Blood was turned into an excellent John Huston movie. Obviously, A Good Man is Hard to Find is one of the standouts, but I also love The Life You Save May Be Your Own. Read Flannery O'Connor. Just do it. Do you like crime? I'm not a fan of doing it. I like to read about it. So Double Indemnity by James M. Cain was turned into an excellent Billy Wilder movie in the 40s. Really tough, cynical edge to it, and Cain sort of mastered the voice of tough, hardened criminals that we've come to expect from noir. It's a really riveting book with a kind of bizarre ending that makes you question the authenticity of our narrator. Another Cain rec that I love is The Postman Always Rings Twice. Super short. Both of these books are really short. The Plot Against America by Philip Roth. Roth is a hugely prolific and fascinating writer, controversial in many ways. It's basically alternate history, but told in a very like family setting. It's a look at what may have happened if Roosevelt didn't win, let's say, his third term in office. Essentially, it boils down to the rise in anti-Semitism, which, hey, very relevant to today. So, you know, very realistic and just a great insight. So it's a book I really like. Moveable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. This is technically nonfiction, but based on some stuff I've read. A lot of it could be fictional. Basically, Hemingway is recounting his years in Paris in the 20s and what it was like being a writer then and his day-to-day existence, but also unique stories. Not a very flattering portrait of F. Scott Fitzgerald that Hemingway paints. So I take it more as fiction and as a kind of like romanticized vision of Hemingway writing about his younger days in Paris. You know, it just has that really beautiful, vibrant prose. It just brings you to a specific place. It is kind of like a comfort book of mine that I like to just kind of get immersed in the pages. No strong forward story momentum in this. It's just more of a collection of situations, a collection of feelings. I love this book. If you like Hemingway and you haven't read this, you know, obviously give it a shot. But before our next book, a word from our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with Skillshare. Look, it's no surprise. I'm a certified Skillshare fan. They have been one of the most delightful and consistent sponsorships I've worked with. I've talked in the past about the Writer's Toolkit, 6 Steps to a Successful Writing Habit by Simon Van Boy. I think it's a great practical course on how to, deepen and get a better and consistent writing habit. But I've really been getting into graphic design lately, and I thought that Graphic Design Basics, Core Principles for Visual Design by Ellen Lupton was a fantastic and really great introductory course into graphic design, a subject that I know so little about, it is embarrassing. You can watch it in bite-sized videos or watch the full course. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads. They're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused. Skillshare now offers classes in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. The first 1,000 people to click on the link in the description get Skillshare for free for 1 month. Go check it out. Learn something new. Skillshare. Back to the video. The next book I want to recommend is The Hamlet by William Faulkner. A lot of you know I'm a huge fan of William Faulkner, even to a point of being very pretentious about it, but I just love Faulkner's prose. I think that he doesn't get enough credit for how funny he is, and the mixture of darkness and comedy, very reminiscent of, Flannery O'Connor. Of course, they're writing in similar regions, in the southern United States. So this book is about the rise of a mysterious individual, in many ways just the embodiment of capitalism, just pure greed. Flem Snopes. This is the first in a trilogy, but I do think that this is the strongest book in that trilogy. Funny, but also darkest and most twisted stories. It feels more like a collection of short stories in a lot of ways, but don't let that remove the urgency from this book, because it feels very urgent. There's a lot of momentous stuff occurring and very epic, mythic stuff. Faulkner writes like in a mythic way. Beautiful writing, and I do think that this is a good entryway into Faulkner because he isn't on his crazy out there Absalom writing 100-word sentences every page. this is a little more reined in. Check out the Hamlet. On Writing by Stephen King is probably the best book about writing I've ever read. I love Lawrence Block's books on writing, but Stephen King has a wonderful way with describing the simple stuff, but also hinting at the larger, more important things that it takes to become a working writer. An incredibly readable book, even though it contains grammar about characters, about paragraph structure, but he himself is not really able to dive completely into what makes it work for him because he's very intuitive writer. So there's kind of this war going on between these are the fundamentals, but there's also a little magic there going on. And it is a really great insight. Even if you aren't a writer yourself, I think that it's a great look into the life of just one of the most important creative people of the 20th century, arguably. So The Great Bridge is a very long nonfiction book about bridges. The other day someone asked me if I read any nonfiction, and I thought, yeah, I do, but I haven't in a while. I do like long books that dive into like one topic. I read a book about Nixon a while ago for some reason. It was really interesting. The Great Bridge is David McCullough, everyone's dad's favorite historian. Interesting look at the building of the Brooklyn Bridge in the 1800s, the discovery of the bends and how that was a huge, very difficult challenge in building this bridge, labor activity going on, what New York politics was like at the time. I mean, it covers every facet of the people on the board of executives, the people who made this thing happen, how it took so long. It was just a gargantuan undertaking. And kind of we don't really acknowledge the massive, massive feat it was for its time. It's very good. Garbage by A.R. Ammons is a book it's a poem about garbage. I don't talk about poetry enough, but this is one of my volumes of A.R. Ammons poetry. I love A.R. Ammons. I particularly like his longer poems. I love Tape for the Turn of the Year, and especially Garbage. Garbage was one of his later long poems. It is kind of a rumination. You kind of just go on his journey through these subjects, and there are beautiful insights, very striking lines, and it is a trip. It's a journey. It's less about the message than it is the process. And if there's any subject that's perfect for our modern times to talk about it, let's talk about the garbage, the detritus, that which is discarded and discardable, since everything in our current culture feels so discardable. Garbage. 100 Years of Solitude. How have I not talked about this book yet? This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a masterpiece. I mean, it is the defining magical realist book. So many people have talked about this book, and people will talk about this book forever. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, just an incredible writer, wrote one of my favorite short stories ever written, The Handsomest Drowned Man in the World. Please read it. I'm sure you could find it free somewhere online. It was written in Spanish, but thank God for this translator it's just a beautiful translation of this book. Gregory Rabassa, that's the translator. A beautiful, dark, haunting, magical lens through which to see the carnage that occurred in Latin America through imperialism, confusing, messy family history, coups with dictatorships, with, the rise and fall of history being scattered all over these pages just until the very, haunting final pages. It's amazing. And I do want to read it again. It's been a while. Wow, the sun is really almost down. What is it, fall or something? The final book I want to recommend is Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. This is a very simple story about a town that is basically Monterey in California. It is just about the people living in the town. It's very slice of life, but very touching. You fall in love with these characters. Steinbeck was very much in the school of Hemingway. So while Steinbeck famously wrote very socially provocative novels, The Grapes of Wrath, In Dubious Battle, I don't know. It's a comfort book for me. It really is. And let me know what I think I would enjoy to read, because I'm always looking out for new stuff to read. So anyways, that was the Man Carrying Thing Book Club. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.